Welcome to the Interop. My guest today is Fig. He's a co-founder at Squid. They're a liquidity and message passing router built on Axelar. In today's conversation, we'll discuss how to develop and leverage Squid and their apps to facilitate cross-chain swaps. We'll also talk about user experience and how Squid is making UX better in crypto. We'll also talk about how it compares to other interoperability solutions. We'll get into Axelar, which of course Squid uses as a message passing layer. We talk about native USDC on Cosmos and the launch of dYdX and the future of interoperability. I'm also dying to find out why he thinks Intense will lead to the next collapse of crypto. Before we get started, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop every week. And remember that none of what we discuss here on the Interop is investment advice. And if you enjoy this content, please consider staking with us. We're validating on Avmos, Quicksilver, Osmosis, Juno, and Nolus. My guest, Fig, is coming up next, right here on the Interop. Hey Fig, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey Seb, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been trying to get this set up, and so I'm glad we finally got around to it, and want to get deep into Squid and its role in the interoperability space. It feels like I've been having just only interoperability protocols in the last couple of months. I mean, maybe you'll describe Squid as something different than an interoperability protocol. I have a feeling that's the case. But before we dive into the product and how it works and it's how it leverages Axelar, maybe talk a bit about your background and how you became interested in blockchain interoperability.
Yeah, sure. So my background was in medicine. I studied that at university, and a long way away from crypto it seems, but it taught me it's a really complex system, and I think that follows through into crypto, where you have this crazy, like this one place, the blockchain, where everything is interacting, being people are building things all the time, users are interacting at the same time that things are being shipped, and you've got this almost like living organism that is this global organism. And yeah, medicine was really fun, but didn't have the creative side that I wanted, or was a bit strict with innovation. So I left medicine, went to New York, where I got interested in finance and started programming, taught myself to code, where I was a freelance dev and designer as well for 5 years or so. But yeah, while I was in New York, I got interested in finance because there was some of my friends that were traders, and they were the ones who first introduced me to crypto. And so I just got an intro via that. But then once I started digging into the technology, fell in love with it and thought it was going to change the fabric of how we did things as a planet civilization. So I actually had a finance job at the time and was learning about TradFi and thought there were all these things in my job in TradFi which were going to be automated or made so much better by crypto. So made the dive. That was around 2020. And yeah, I've been building Squid ever since.
Cool. You're not the first guy that I talked to that dropped out of med school to go into crypto. What's that conversation like when you tell your parents that you're dropping out of med school to go full time into crypto or something different?
Well, I mean, at first it was dropping out of med school to do nothing, right? It was just to go live in New York, and I became a dev, and then also finally got a job in finance, and then got into crypto. But the dropping out of med school thing is so hard because it's seen as an extremely secure life. And once you're in, like, the hardest part is getting in, and then you sort of got it set. I mean, very, very difficult. The 10, 15 years following that all of my friends, had to go through. But I think my parents they see that as the right thing. Like, I'm so much more happy doing this than being in what I think is quite a corporate job, being a doctor in an environment that, isn't as sort of experimental. You don't want your doctor to be playing with you, trying new things out and making things better. Like, in prod. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like the absolute um, opposite ethos to the ethos of crypto, right? Where I mean, you don't want to be testing in production, but always innovating. It's like constant innovation, and it seems like, I mean, I feel like it's been that way for the last 10 years. Like I haven't seen a slowdown in innovation, right? Even after multiple cycles, and this current bear market, builder cycle, whatever you want to call it, there's just so much innovation happening again, right? And like the narrative is different than the last cycle. Like, I think one of the big narratives, and certainly like one that like Squid operates in, is interoperability and creating trust minimizing and permissionless ways to pass messages and tokens between different domains of state. Like that is such a huge part of, I think, the next cycle, and it's going to be interesting to see which which of the projects, which of the players in this narrative that are crafting this narrative
Mm.
are really going to like pierce through to the next wave, right? So yeah, let's talk about Squid. So yeah, at a high level, what is Squid and who are you building this product for?
Mm. So I can start with Squid. Squid was born out of the need to interact with blockchains when there's not just one blockchain. That's like very simply in the early DeFi summer days. Before that, Bitcoin as well. Everyone was interacting with Ethereum, and it was this amazing, like, creative place where all the apps were interoperable by default because they were on the same blockchain. Users could use one wallet, um, and the way they got around was really through dexes. They would swap from one token, which was compatible with an application, to another token, which was compatible with an app on the same chain. But then we saw high gas prices. Things went, it became unusable basically on Ethereum. And you have more technology as well. You have this like great innovative and evolutionary environment where, like the Cosmos, where you have people spinning up the new blockchains all the time. But to go and use those blockchains was, to a normal person, impossible, basically, because you you had to go to maybe 30 different no, not 30 websites, it's 30 clicks, I think. Like Stargaze, to go from Ethereum to Stargaze was at 30 clicks at one point. Um, and it's really scary for people every time they go to a new website. You try a new application, new bridge. You need gas to interact with it. It's just this UX nightmare. So Squid was born out of that problem. So being able to, just a normal user being able to interact with the blockchain, but while utilizing this app chain rollup future that we were expecting. And that's really playing out. We've got like a ton of app chains. Rollups are already working really well, and we've got rollup development kits coming out where we're expecting hundreds of thousands of new chains. And what Squid does is we allow you to, if you have a token on one chain, you can go to an application's website, or you can go to Squid's website and move onto that new chain, that new application, in a single click. And we, in the background, use decentralized protocols for routing your assets through bridges, through IBC, through DEXs to get you there. So it's really a user experience thing at the end of the day, but you need this infrastructure to like synthesize the world of all the app chains, rollups, bridges, etc., and compress it down into like a one-click transaction.
Yeah, I like to think of Squid as, I mean, it's sort of like in the name, right? It's a Squid router. It's
Mm.
the router for moving assets across different, um, well, I mean, in this case, for now at least, moving assets across different chains, utilizing an underlying layer, which is Axelar. But it effectively just routes. I mean, so if you break the product down into its simplest form, it just routes tokens. So like you have like Osmo on Osmosis, and you want to end up with USDC on Ethereum. Squid will figure out how to swap those tokens at the best rate and move them across those chains so that it's seamless for the user.
Yeah, exactly. It's a router. We've been saying Google Maps for a long time. You go from USDC and Ethereum to Osmo, and we find you the Axelar might be the roads, and like there's an intersection which is the osmosis DEX, that kind of thing. But what we've realized, it's actually more like Uber, because Uber has this this maps component where they can find you the right way. But with Uber, you can click "Take me there," and it sort of all happens for you. And we obviously don't do any of the execution. It's all happens on chain. But it's to be a cliche startup founder. It's the Uber for this, Uber for cross chain.
Yeah. But I mean, ultimately, it's a B to C product, right? Because I mean, you're building for developers, the users of Squid, those that are interacting with it, or at least like building with Squid or developers. The ultimate like the end user that will be utilizing Squid, perhaps without even knowing it, is a DeFi user or blockchain user, token holder that's trying to move assets across chain. Um, when talking with developers, like what are the biggest pain points that they see and that like you guys are directly solving for them, and like what does a product look like? So if I'm a developer and I'm like wanting to implement Squid in my application, what does that look like?
Yeah. So most basic thing you can do with Squid is swap across chain and bridge. So that's often what people come to us for. And the product is we have our own front end where you can go and do it. Um, we have an SDK, which is a JavaScript SDK to be used in front ends, and you can build, very easily your own front end around it, which is user is here, they want to come to our app and deposit assets in. And we also have widgets, which are React pre-built front end components that you can just put straight into your website. Super easy. And developers often, especially in the Cosmos, come to us because they want to onboard users into the app. And you have this situation where developers in crypto wants to build something, and they have to make a compromise between the technology that they build on and the user base of that technology. So, hence why maybe so many people are building on Arbitrum and Optimisms, because there's already, hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity and lots of users there on every day. But we want to be able to make it so that a developer can build in Cosmos, but they can serve their application up to any user, whether they're on Arbitrum, where they don't even know they're on Arbitrum, maybe. And in one click, come and use the app, whatever it may be, like land on Umi, or go into dYdX, for example, like use Osmosis. And they should never have to really realize that there was a problem getting there in the first place. It's really for onboarding and using applications from anywhere. That's how we usually integrate it.
So I think like when thinking about interoperability solutions, and certainly the ones that we've had here on the podcast, we're talking about solutions that are interacting at the chain level, right? So they're allowing a user to verify the state of another chain, or an application to verify the state of another chain in order to move tokens from one domain of state to another. In the case of Axelar, like Axelar sort of sits, the Axelar hub sits between different chains and mitigates those transfers. It's safe to say that like Squid operates at a different layer of the stack, right? I mean, you guys are not building the plumbing that allows the state to be verified. You're leveraging, at least for now, Axelar as that interoperability layer underneath Squid. Can you talk about like what that means for the product, and from the perspective of like it's like business development, right? I mean, because you're also competing with these other interoperability products, and maybe we can also get into after how you guys are leveraging Axelar.
Yeah, sure. So our relationship with Axel has been amazing because we can each focus very tightly on our own products, and Axelar is at the message passing layer and security layer, and then we're at the user experience and the DevX layer as well. Axelar have other teams building directly on them, but Squid has hundreds of partners already who have built with Squid, but Axelar sees them as also building on Axelar. It's this sort of pass-through layer, and the way Squid works is we we really just take the complexity out of interacting with interop protocols, and also with DEXs, because Axelar is super powerful in the way that you can do anything across chain, but every app that wanted to do onboarding or wanted to do cross-chain buying purchases of NFTs or loaning across chain, whatever, they all need some kind of swap component as well. And so what we've done is we've packaged up swaps and cross-chain swaps with bridging and message passing as well. We've made sure to keep this fully generic programmability on Squid. And that ends up being much more useful to teams because they don't need to build their own DEX aggregator or router in the house. Otherwise there'd be hundreds of people building their own one. Where we can be that one, and then and yeah, then it makes it very easy to integrate with us and Axelar. In terms of other bridges as well, we like to think of, so Axelar is I don't know if your listeners already know who they are, but basically they're a Cosmos chain who all their validators verify messages by actually they're bringing in a permissionless model, so they'll have any type of verification. Could be ZK, could be IBC, which they already support, or the CGP model, which is where 75 validators vote on state, on that state exists on one chain, and you pass that across. Axelar supports about 60, maybe 70 chains at this point, including all the IBC ones. And we're integrating cross-chain DEXs and other interop protocols sort of at the edges. Certainly the focus is with Axelar though. So whatever they support, we will always support. And we've just integrated IBC, so we have some extra chains which aren't connected to Axelar. Because the idea is that a user of Squid should be able to use anywhere. They shouldn't have to go anywhere else to get what they want or to do something in crypto. And that's, again, part of the complexity we remove is if you had to go to Axelar's bridge and then you had to go to Osmosis, do a swap, and then do an IBC transfer to the Cosmos hub and then go and stake, instead of having to go to 5 different websites for that, you just go to Squid and you do it once. So yeah, it's an example of how we're interacting with them.
So the message passing layer is independent of the Squid router. Does that mean that Squid could effectively use other message passing layers? Would there be any interest to do that? I mean, for specific chains, maybe that Axelar doesn't support, or is there an inherent advantage to using Axelar that is directly related to the Squid product?
Yeah, for sure. I think any chain that is connected to Axelar is going to be much easier for us to add. And Axelar has this great property where it is a hub, and it's a hub that can connect to multiple different message passing protocols. And we've seen that with the IBC and their current CGP. We can now connect to, we're really the only product that can connect to both all these EVM chains and IBC chains in one click. And they're bringing in their own permissionless model where you can bring in ZK and lots of different things. So if someone connects to Axelar from the Squid point of view, it's much easier for us to integrate because they act as a hub in the hub and spoke model where every spoke which is already connected to their hub will get connectivity to every other spoke. And then when you add one new spoke, you don't have to add, if they support 70 chains, you don't need to add 69 spokes. You need to just add one spoke. And then it makes the Squid integration level a lot easier. So it's a nice scaling feature. And then Axelar, another huge thing in cross-chain, the hardest thing really is gas and spending gas across chains. And Axelar have their own layer on top of their message passing, which we've already got a very good understanding of how their gas model works, and just getting reliable execution across chains is difficult. And by leveraging their gas network, we also can scale a lot faster. So it gives us an edge over partners, because they're not sorry over partners over some of our competitors in the EVM space who maybe aggregate 5 or 6, 10 different bridges. Because we can move a lot faster, we've just got one point of integration, and everything is much more predictable how it behaves. Um, yeah, there's that, and then I guess there's the security benefit as well compared to a lot of the EVM protocols.
So you talked about the gas management. Can you describe how that works, and yeah, how does Axelar manage it, and how are you guys leveraging that functionality of Axelar?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Axelar's model works how that you um, they have the verification layer at the bottom, which verifies messages using the validator set, and that's using the Cosmos chain, all decentralized. And then the gas layer is permissionless but not decentralized. So anyone can provide relay services, anyone can provide gas services on top. And Axelar have a gas service that they've built themselves, which the way that works is you pay upfront, you pay like too much upfront, and then you get refunded after. So it means like the biggest issue with gas across chain is because you can't predict what the gas prices are in the other chain without first doing some kind of cross chain message, or um, without yourself checking the RPCs. It sort of has to be off chain in a way. It's either has to be off chain or someone is taking a risk, because if an Ethereum, for example, like say some NFT launch has just happened, gas prices go up to like $200 a transaction, and the users only paid like $6 for that transaction, then it looks like a censorship situation, but really it's just the gas the relayer has no incentive to execute. So what we do is we overpay by about 50 to 80%. It depends on the chain, because some chains are much more variable than others. And then the user will get refunded after their destination chain transaction's been executed. And that way, they're never overpaying. They always just pay for what they use. And that's what we've come to sort of like about blockchains. If it's expensive and you're willing to pay for it, it's on you. It's not on the infrastructure provider.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And how does Squid handle like different um, like atomicity guarantees between chains? So you might have like different finality, or like with an optimistic roll up, you may have like a fraud proof window that needs to expire in order for the transaction to be
Mm.
final. So like, how does Squid handle that? And also,
Mm.
yeah, does Squid also work with Bitcoin? I guess since
Not
you
yet,
also
but
use
we're going to
Axe,
have it
not
soon.
yet.
Yeah, Bitcoin will hopefully come in December. We've got partnership with Chainflip, who are a substrate-based chain who are doing
Okay,
Bitcoin swaps. Really excited
cool.
about it. Atomicity, theoretically impossible across different blockchains unless you merge the validator sets. You've got intents, which are coming, and they provide a nice window into atomicity. Maybe, yeah, you essentially offload the requirement to make something atomic to someone else who's maybe staking something to say, I will fulfill this for you in an atomic way, yeah. So anyway, without going into intents, because that's tempting, we have a nice.
Oh, we will.
Okay, we will. There's there's like a halfway house that we've gotten, and it's a system called Boost. And what it is that the user can execute the message on the source chain. Say they're trying to swap USDC on Ethereum to USDC on Arbitrum. Um, And usually, what you would have to do is you have to wait for the finality for ETH L1 to finalize after the users submitted their ETH transaction, before the bridge can, securely give tokens on Arbitrum. But what we do is that we allow another provider to provide the bridge tokens to the user on the destination chain, and then execute the exact payload that the users requested, which happens to be usually a swap or maybe they're buying an NFT, something like that, they can provide these tokens and execute the payload immediately, and then they take on the risk that the Ether1 censors the transaction for some reason. And it doesn't give you atomicity, but it brings really what's most important for the user, and that's the speed of a cross-chain transaction. You can see it finalize for you after um, it's under 20 seconds, so anywhere from like 1 second to 20. Um, and yeah, really amazing feature. It's been like something that people like using in Squid. It's not available in Cosmos yet, but we're building it, so you'll be able to say go from Ethereum to Osmosis in less than 20 seconds, and hopefully to all the other chains as well.
So just to maybe go on a little tangent on Intense,
Mm.
your hot take was that you think that Intense will eventually lead to everything going off chain. Um, while we've been spending years like trying to put everything on chain, and Intense effectively sort of brings everything off chain. Yeah, can you unpack that a little bit, and what's your thesis here for how Intense will shape this space in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, my hot take is that Intense will, they're a bit like I don't know what the right metaphor is, but just like the apple in the tree of Eden. They're like very tempting, bringing everything off chain. Everything should be faster, everything should be better, cheaper, and we'll go down that road as well. But I think it could end up in this sort of being the next FTX, where we spend the next bull market, everything coming off chain, becoming like super fast, and like the whole world starts using blockchains, and it only settles to basically you just have this like account on Ethereum, or you have even Bitcoin, and it just becomes a ledger again. And maybe that's our future, but there could be then some big censorship moment where um, maybe someone decides that solvers can't act anymore, and users suddenly have no way of getting what they want done. Um, so yeah, I think intents are amazing, but that Squid will stay. We'll
By bringing everything off chain, an external actor, whether it's regulation or like some external factor that has easier access to the off chain world, would or could potentially censor transactions, prohibit solvers from executing their transactions on chain, and users would be kind of like stuck in this limbo. They sort of like be frozen in time, unable to execute their transactions, unable to settle. I mean, we could also couldn't we build mitigation solutions for this where like a user could execute their own transaction? I guess it like if the intent system becomes so complex, then it becomes more difficult to do that.
Yeah, well, that's exactly like Squid exists because it's so hard to do cross-chain transactions, and we've built a solver essentially, and we can build an intent market as well and start involving other solvers. But um, if all of the other solvers, they're real businesses, they're really like technical groups. They're not just single actors who just happen to. I mean, maybe there will be also some single actors, and that could be a nice way out of this. But what will probably end up happening is we have a bunch of like product teams servicing this like intent layer. Um, and if for some reason they all just can't act anymore, then there's no way for a user to like use the validator sets of blockchains to like guarantee that they won't be censored. Like it's that guarantee of execution. Like blockchains and intents are still secure, but you won't lose your money, but your guarantee to get something done is at risk. And it becomes
Yeah.
I sort of think of it like the gas cost of the validator set is it's fully generic on Ethereum or on like any blockchain, and you just no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's like whether someone doesn't want you to do it or not, you can get it done at this generic price. But some things that become more like uh, there are maybe are going to be censored by the government or like different actors. Your price to get execution starts going up really high.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah, that's the shift that I'm seeing.
Okay. This kind of touches on this concept that so this team that we had on the podcast called Blocklist. So they're building like this WASM zkVM, which is really cool because I mean one of the things that this product enables is the ability to do LLMs that for blockchains, right? So like a blockchain can leverage their off-chain execution environment to perform actions with operations with an LLM and computations that basically come back on chain. They're verifiable.
Mm.
But they've come up with this idea of a network neutral application where the application logic sits on this off chain zkVM, and they have a model for building like a network of these off chain executions, right? But they're it's a network of operators, but they're not on chain. But this concept of a network neutral application is effectively this network executes the application logic and then settles to different blockchains, but the application sort of exists in this off chain network. Like I don't know, I guess something akin to like a BitTorrent, right? Like it exists in this off chain verifiable computation thing, which it's interesting, but it hadn't occurred to me that potentially there's this risk that these off-chain transactions could or these off-chain operations could be at risk of not being able to settle for like a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I think I'm not familiar with Blocklist's architecture, but ZK is maybe a little bit better in this regard. Like, depends if you can run um, your own infrastructure to get your transaction done, or if yeah, ZK is I think retains some of the nice like decentralization characteristics that we like about blockchains. Um, it's more just this model of like I want something done, I don't care at all. Just go and do it for me. But it's that model that is at risk there. I mean, it's my hot take, so like don't take me too seriously. But one of
Yeah. Yeah, I want to come back to Axelar a little bit, and we can talk more about sort of like with liquidity fragmentation and in the space and how you guys are helping solve that. But yeah, so coming back to Axelar, it is a very unique model, I think, compared to a lot of the um, some of the other interoperability solutions that have come up lately, right? Like Hyperlane and Union and Polymer, like the hub and spoke model, right? I think they've sort of like owned that space. Um, you know, on the scale of permissionless to trust minimized, trust minimized, I guess. On that scale, like where would you place Axelar, and in what cases would it be better to use another solution, right? Like as a user, what are the considerations that one might have when using Axelar over like another interoperability solution? Maybe it's like something like Union or Polymer or Hyperlane.
yeah, yeah. I think I give them an 8. I think, and that's on a theoretical level, though. I think something that's missed with like I got into this interop stuff because I was so interested in the consensus layer, like the security models of these different protocols. But what you see in practice is that security is so much more than like a white paper. These are just teams who are building software which needs to be really robust, well tested, well audited, has a Lindy of being used for a while, has sustained like a lot of transaction volume. And hub and spoke is a nice example of that, because the biggest argument against hub and spoke is that you break the hub and then everyone loses everything, and people don't like that idea. But in practice, the hub actually reduces a lot of this complexity, which is what causes some of these hacks. Maybe one of the point-to-point connections isn't as well maintained as the other ones, and then suddenly the other ones are the blowout is much harder to contain. Rate limiting is a lot harder when you don't have hub and spoke, because you've got thousands and thousands of point-to-point connections, and none of them have any knowledge of what the other one is doing. So we've seen that, like, say, when multi-chain is the name of another interop protocol that was, and turned out to be literally just the CEO had the keys, but it was meant to be some MPC solution, and they got hacked. Phantom, which was mostly had multi-chain assets, was compromised, and then all the other point-to-point solutions like Stargate and Layer Zero, for example, had to shut down because there was just no other way for them to contain that blowout. Whereas Axelar and Squid, we could stay online, and the LPs of the multi-chain assets on Phantom would lose their money, but through that period, there were still arbitrageurs and traders who were like betting on the chance the multi-chain would actually come back and the assets would repeg. And so users were able to get like 30, 40 cents for their dollar because we were still running. And that was only because we had this hub and spoke model where we could be sure like the Phantom blowout wasn't going to take down the whole Axelar network. So yeah, that's like the basic model where they have 75 validators voting on everything. I think that's, it's good enough, and it's really good compared to most of the interop protocols out there. Because at the end of the day, all of these things are just validators voting on messages, and yeah.
Yeah, but in the end, at the end of the day, I mean, Axelar is still permissioned from the perspective of which chains get added to the network, correct? Or is that subject to governance?
Oh, sure. So the permissionless in that sense, yeah, it's permissioned, I guess. And you rely on their dev team adding networks, but they, yeah, their V2, Axelar V2, which is their permissionless model, should be out pretty soon, actually. And they have a CosmWasm layer where you can drop your own light client and then spin up, connection easily. So
That's the Axelar VM.
yeah.
Is that live? Because I mean, I talked to Sergey like in Denver last year. We had him on the podcast, and
Mm.
I haven't found much. Like I was looking for the docs for that, and I couldn't find it. I don't know if it's already live or anything.
Yeah, no, nothing public. It's working though. I've seen some demos, and it's like it's their priority at the moment. So
Okay.
yeah, I've got a bunch
Yeah.
of teams that are connected to it. Yeah,
Now
connecting
the
to
the
it.
way the way I see Axelar in relation to something like IBC is like, my analogy, and let me know if this resonates with you, is like Axelar is, or IBC is like the SMTP of blockchains, and people are building clients for it, right? And there will be different implementations of it, but ultimately we're leveraging like sort of this open protocol that anybody can use and anybody can build upon. And Axelar is like almost like a proprietary messaging product, right? So, you know, I don't know, maybe like Slack, right, as a messaging product. I mean, it's not a perfect comparison to email, but like imagine if Slack did email.
Mm.
But so it's like this sort of proprietary application, and that's not to say that it's not open source and like not decentralized, but users do have to rely on, or at least like chains have to rely on, as you mentioned, like on developers to implement new connections, new chains, and there is this reliance on the validator set now. Like you might you might be comfortable using that security model, but it's not a fully trust minimized security model in the same way that like IBC is, where you don't have that intermediary, whether like decentralized or not. Like you don't have that intermediary between chains to validate the state of each chain. So I mean that's the way I kind of like position Axelar in the decentralized or like permissionless trust minimized scale. Um, it's like a valuable product. Like I mean, it's beyond that. Like it's still like an immensely valuable product, and I use it all the time. I'm just happy that we have both, right? That we do have like the fully trust minimized, permissionless, open standards, as well as like these highly efficient, very well put together products.
Mm. Yeah, totally. I mean, Axelar's come at it from a point of view of trying to like solve a problem, and then work out the best way to solve that problem without compromising on decentralization and security. And then they're coming to the more open model. I don't see their like CGP as being or their like interface for how you interact with Axelar being a competitor necessarily to IBC. Um, like how Squid interacts with them is um, there's work in integrating them, in integrating different models, but a lot of the hard stuff happens behind the scenes, and there's lots of different ways of that happening. Like Polymer's come in and now is trying to do ZK stuff, and we have the Cosmos SDK, which has its own like way of verifying IBC, and a a lot of the a lot of the work and like the actual product of the interop is not the standard, like you said exactly. So yeah, Axelar um, is one of those. It's um, built the Slack, yeah, built messaging protocol.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into a little bit more of the liquidity aspect here. Because Squid sort of brands itself as a liquidity router, and I think Axelar plays an important role here um, as a sort of like pool of liquidity between chains.
Mm,
Um, you know, in specifically at this moment, right, where USDC is becoming native on Cosmos, what will be the role of AXL USDC? Will it continue to be useful? Um, I mean, not only for users, right, on Cosmos chains, but as a way to sort of like bridge liquidity on the protocol itself. Yeah, maybe what's your long term view here for like how Axelar interacts with USDC more broadly?
mm. Yeah, well, we have it. What's going live? It might have happened today actually already. Is we will be able to swap to native USDC on Osmosis. So you got USDC on Ethereum, you bridge across to Osmosis, it becomes Axelar USDC. You swap it into Noble USDC, send it to Noble, send it to dYdX, and that's an onboarding layer, onboarding pathway, onboarding route, which is really efficient because Osmosis has these amazing pools that are almost one to one. It has one to one swaps as well, which we'll use sometimes. And so you get exactly the same experience as using CCTP, but when we have something like Boost in the Cosmos, you'll be able to do a lot faster that way. But I think Axelar aren't really like they recognize that CCTP is really it's if you want to move USDC around, that's the way to do it. So we've also integrated CCTP, and you can, if you're on Ethereum, Avalanche, Arbitrum, wherever, you'll be able to get to anywhere in the Cosmos with native, like with Noble USDC, um, in one click using Circles Transfer Protocol. Um, in the long term, it's a nice way for us to transfer value across chains. And like the whole thing with Squid has been cross chain swaps are actually really secure and safe thing to do because you're able to swap into a native asset in the same transaction. So you never have to bridge and then swap. Like you never have that point where you're holding a bridged asset, you need to get it into a native asset. Um, and that's been a really nice selling point across all of our integrations, is because none of our users actually really take bridge risk. And this is one of those examples potentially. It's a bit different here because I think the IBC collateralized, like AXL USDC, is it's more secure, but yeah, we'll be letting people on board into Noble USDC wherever they like.
So you guys have just integrated with with Noble and also dYdX. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and when
Yeah,
can we start to see that coming online?
yeah. Well, I mean, it might be online already. I have to go and check it, but um, yeah, super excited for Noble's launch they and dYdX's launch. It's just I think there's 300 and something $1 million of USDC on their Starkware product, and hopefully that'll all move over to the Cosmos. So yeah, really excited to be supporting them. dYdX have integrated Squid into their front end, so when you onboard into dYdX using their front end, it'll be using Squid under the hood, and sometimes Osmosis, sometimes CCP, depending on where you're coming from. Um, yeah, and then Noble's
But
like,
what's nice is that it will all end up being native USDC. So no matter where you're bridging from,
yeah,
the experience for the user will just be like USDC. It's not like Axelar USDC or some other bridge USDC.
yeah. It'll all be USDC. And yeah, that's actually another thing I didn't mention about the role of Axelar USDC, is because Circle's transfer protocol probably won't exist everywhere, whereas Axelar will probably end up supporting some rollups, which like they're only connected to one thing, and you need to go through Axelar USDC to get to Osmosis, and then we swap, and then we send off. So it becomes this kind of labyrinth, but that's what Squid's trying to solve. We're trying to make it so you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think like USDC and Cosmos is going to like just really improve the user experience, right? Like just generally across the board. But then also there's this big potential to, and I think in the next few months we'll see if that actually comes to play, right? It's like this big potential for lots of liquidity to come into the Cosmos ecosystem, and certainly having good interoperability solutions where users can in like one click in app just like move tokens from Ethereum over into dYdX. It takes like 20 seconds. I mean, that's the dream, right? Like, that seamless user experience is, I think, what a lot of us have been like waiting for a long time, and now it's here, right? It's just like it's here. It's like it's a mature UX, and it's like absolutely fantastic to be able to use it. And it works, right? When it works, it's like it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super exciting to be doing it.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is about like bridge asset fungibility and liquidity fragmentation, and um, I think like bridge asset fungibility is still a problem and will continue to be a problem as long as there's different bridging solutions. And
Mm.
so um, in the case of Osmosis, I guess like Osmosis was pretty smart in like really choosing their bridging solutions and making it clear to users like which one was a canonical bridge. I think they've avoided having like all the sort of like nightmarish list of assets that all represent the same thing but are
Mm.
just coming from different bridges and have different security sort of considerations. So do you think that the proliferation of bridges will itself create a new liquidity fragmentation problem? So, like compounding on the existing liquidity fragmentation problem that exists by virtue of having different domains of state, that this would get compounded by just the fact that there are just so many bridging solutions, and chains can't reason about the bridge security of each of these assets.
Hmm. Well, I mean, that would be no. It's not a bull case for Squid, but if that becomes the worse it gets, the more people need us. I mean, I think how this might play out. I think it's how it's playing out already. So we had this like 2021 era where like people were actually using bridged assets, and they started getting hacked. They started realizing that's a bad idea. Um, And then now what's happening is like we've got more the squid model where you use the bridge asset to get across, and you just have this one very isolated liquidity pool which has bridged assets in it. And then from there, you can get into anything native. And that's like a really nice place to be. And all the different bridges have that kind of model starting to be set up where they just have a way of getting in, and then the user goes off from there, and like they're fairly safe. Um, and now, though, what is the next step is we've got teams like Lido, who we're working with Axelar and Neutron, and they're a staked ETH provider who have this asset which is extremely like well used across different worlds. And it's very easy for them with rollups because there's a canonical bridge. Like the rollup is a bridge essentially, and you use that to get canonical staked ETH in these different rollups. But then to get to Neutron, they had to build a bridge with they use Axelar. And what's happening is the application is using an aggregation of different bridges under the hood. So they have Axelar, but they're able to add. If Axelar goes down, they can always use their governance to like switch to another bridge if they need. And that's really the biggest issue, right? Like if you don't want your bridge to go down, and then you being your whole token supply across chains is lost. So they have this model where they can use an interop solution that works really well, and then if something goes wrong, they can the token holders still have the control to um, to social rollback because it's all social consensus at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I had Carell from Union on last week,
Nice.
and he was talking about. I have to remember how this goes. So basically, um, Union will have IBC connections to different chains,
Mhm.
and if basically they want to solve the they want to solve the fungibility problem by being able to provide a proof that the assets came from the same place. So if they're able to verify the state of the emitting chain, and they can provide a proof to the destination chain that the assets came from the same from basically from the same place, say Ethereum going to Osmosis, then those assets on Osmosis can effectively be considered to be fungible.
Um, but then are there still USDCs locked on, say, the Axelar gateway and the wormhole gateway? Like, how do you, who takes the risk if one of those, um, bridging protocols goes down? Who loses half of their USDC? Like, I have to talk to Carol. I'm actually due a call with him, so I'd love to ask him about it.
Yeah, yeah, you should because I mean we didn't go like too much into detail about it, but because I think it's sort of like a novel idea that they've had, but they're exploring like how they can use proofs to basically like solve this fungibility problem. I'll have to go back
Yeah,
and listen to it.
that's the other. You asked like what's the end game? I mean, hopefully we end up with ZK. Like ZK is, I think, actually less secure, especially in the short term. But in the long term, we can have ZK has these amazing bridging capabilities, which is like verifying the state of another chain is one of those. Running like clients anywhere is like really powerful. I think that's probably an end game.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on ETH stake being utilized to secure Cosmos chains? Is this something that Axelar is working on? Because like all the ZK teams that I talk to are thinking about this or like thinking about ways to like integrate with say like Eigenlayer or whatever to enable staked ETH to be used to secure Cosmos chains.
Mm. And I mean, I don't have formed opinions, I would say that's bullish for the Cosmos, because any way you can get ETH users to get more yield on their ETH by doing something, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't
And I
know.
mean, I think it,
Sounds similar to Babylon, I was going to say. I mean, yeah, why
yeah.
would you get ETH stake instead of Bitcoin stake, I guess? Why not? Okay. Why not get more stake?
Yeah. I mean, why not both?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So I have to ask you about this because like so many people asked on Twitter, or a few people asked on Twitter. I think you know what this is. It's like when Squid token, when Squid governance token.
Yeah, we already made the airdrop cutoff. No, there's no plans for a token, as in we haven't made plans, not confirming or disconfirming one. So I can't give anyone good news. I'm sorry. I think, yeah, we want to be a decentralized protocol. So um, we've just been focusing on the product for now and trying to make something that works, get a lot of adoption, and yeah, we'll go from there.
But what would a token? What might a token be used for in the context of Squid? Like, what would there be to govern um, that a token would be useful for?
I mean, just going through all the different ideas, like you could go with very basic governance token. It's a bit of a meme at this point, to be honest, but we control the governance token. It gives the Squid team, or maybe they decide it's not best that the Squid team does the development for some of the products. You could do that. You could have purely a token which, if Squid turns on fees one day, or if there's another way of revenue, then the token holders can, you know, direct that or participate in some way. Um, I think, Squid at the end of the day is a bit of a, we're a UX tool, and there's different ways that you can get your community involved in the product, like in developing the product, and like um, sort of providing loyalty and sticking with Squid, helping it grow over time and being part of that growth, which doesn't have to be part of the core protocol of doing these cross-chain routes. It can be purely a product feedback loop, and you can have tokenomics models around that. Yeah, all just totally drawing board ideas.
Well,
And
maybe
then,
some of these will make it into reality.
yeah, let's see. And maybe the Squid app chain comes one day. Let's see.
Yeah, when Squid App Chain was my next question.
I mean, honestly, it's so tempting. We talk about it all the time, but it's not. It's just like it's too much. We're gonna just do what we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you this was another point I wanted to ask you, and you sort of touched on it. It's like, yeah, what's the business model? Because currently you're not charging any fees, right?
No, yeah, we currently we're charging through business to business, like B2B integrations. If they want to charge a fee, we take a cut. It's a revenue share model.
Yeah.
I like it the most because these front ends, like wallets, are the best. They have the best ability. Wallets and fiat on ramps and whatnot. They have the best way to actually charge a fee to a user, and adding swaps is a great way for them to like monetize as well. So we're just sharing that. We don't have to introduce any, like other MEV fees or other kinds of more sneaky ways of like making money. But that's not to say we won't.
Cool. So yeah, what's on the roadmap, and where can people go to find out more about Squid and maybe integrating Squid in their app? Or yeah, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, go do a swap and get into dYdX using us. App.squidrouter.com is where you can try it out. And then if you're a dev, then we'd love to be able to help you with onboarding. And we want to bring Squid to like more wider use cases. We're working with Stargaze to do cross-chain purchases from EVM into Cosmos. Anyone who's building an app in Cosmos and wants to get like the EVM users over in one click. I get really excited about those use cases. Find us on Twitter, Squid Router, and yeah, I'm ECDSAFU on Twitter. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Fig. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. See ya.